This conference will now be recorded.
So in the last classes, we have seen the introduction of real-time projects and the need of going with the real-time projects, the roles and responsibilities as a developer. Then we have seen about the overview of real-time tools, and we have seen Maven tool and GitHub tool. So this Maven tool and GitHub tool will be keep on using till end of our course. Today, let us move to the next module, that is Spring Boot and microservices. Spring Boot and microservices. So in order to understand microservices, we should know Spring Boot. And to understand Spring Boot, we should know about Spring Framework. So I'm just going to give a recap on Spring Framework. Then we'll go with Spring Boot. Directly we'll work with Spring Boot. So to understand Spring Boot, the prerequisite is we should have an idea on Spring Core module. And remaining things like Spring JDBC, Spring Hibernate, Spring Web MVC, everything we do using Spring Boot only. Now, first of all, let us understand what is a framework. What is the need of going with framework? Frameworks. A framework is a group of predefined libraries. What is a framework? It's a group of predefined libraries which comes with set of jar files. And in order to add this jar files only, we are going to make use of Maven tool. Then, what frameworks is going to do? Frameworks will provide some common logics required for the application, required for the project development. For example, in our application, we need to connect to database. In order to connect to database, what are the steps? Load the driver class, establish the connection, then create statement, execute statement. We have to close the statement, we have to close connection, handle the exceptions. These many steps we need to do in simple plain JDBC. So whenever you want to connect to database, these many steps we need to do. So these steps only we call boilerplate code. So to avoid this common logics, we are going to use this frameworks. Framework will take care of all this connections part, closing operations, handling exceptions, all those things. Then, so because of that, it's going to reduce burden on the developers. Frameworks will reduce the burden to the developers. Right? Now, we are having the frameworks like examples of frameworks, like we are having Struts framework. This Struts framework, it's mainly for web development. It is used for what purpose? Web development. We are having Hibernate framework. This is for database persistence layer. This is for database connection. This is for persistence. Then we are having Spring framework. So this is complete application framework. We call it as what? Application framework. Application framework means any type of application we can develop by using Spring. Right? So what are the different types of frameworks we are having? ORM frameworks. ORM frameworks are used to develop persistence layer. ORM frameworks are used for what? Persistence layer in application. Example is Hibernate framework. Next one, web frameworks. Web frameworks are used to develop web applications. Example, Struts framework. Struts framework is only for web applications. Then, whereas Spring is an application framework. Application development framework. Spring is what? It's an application development framework. Then, using Spring, we can develop end-to-end application. We can develop what type of application? End-to-end application. Okay. Now, let us understand what is this end-to-end application. The meaning of end-to-end application is like, let us suppose when we are having an application, the application is divided in the form of layers. Like we'll be having web layer. We'll be having what? Web layer. So what web layer contains? It contains the controllers and web components. Web layer contains what? The controllers and web components. Then we'll be having service layer where we do the business logic. We'll be having what? Service layer where we do the what? Business logic. Business logic we do it in service layer. Then we'll be having persistence layer. Persistence layer. So what is this persistence layer? The database communication logic. What it holds? The database communication logic. Using this, we connect to a database. We connect to what? By using this persistence layer, we connect to database. Then from UI, because when you are developing a web application, UI layer is important. From UI, the UI layer from browser, we are going to connect to this web layer. Web layer is going to communicate to service layer, that is for business logic. Service layer make uses of persistence layer for database logic and which connects to your database, right? Then web layer, in the olden days, web layer, we use it to develop by using struts. Web layer is developed by using what? Struts. Then persistence layer, we develop by using Hibernate. Means to develop this end-to-end application, UI layer to database connection, we are using different frameworks over here. Web layer struts framework, for persistence layer, Hibernate framework. So the people have thought, why can't we develop one framework which is going to take care of this end-to-end application? Means web layer, service layer, and persistence layer. All these things should be taken care by only one framework. That is the place where Spring has come into picture. So by using Spring, we can develop web layer also, and we can even go with persistence layer also. So that is the beauty of Spring framework. That's the reason. So any Java application we are developing nowadays, what framework we are using nowadays? Spring framework. Got it? Any questions up to here? No. When we come to the Spring framework is developed in the form of modules. Just a second. So I'm back here. Sorry to make you wait. So what is this Spring Framework? Spring Framework is developed in the form of what? Modules. Yeah. Hello, Sucharita.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi. Yeah. Sorry for not taking your call as I was in the class.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hope you got the link. That's the reason you joined, and you can even find the drive link also. In the drive link, you can find all our notes and programs. Programs, of course, I'll use in GitHub. Recordings also you can find in the drive link. Okay. Got it, Sucharita?
Yeah.
So we just started with the next module, that is Spring Boot and microservices. So before we go to this Spring Boot, we should have a basic idea on Spring Framework that I'm discussing over here. So first of all, we are discussing about framework. What is this framework? Framework is a group of predefined libraries. What is framework? It's a group of predefined libraries which comes with a set of jar files. Which comes with what? Set of jar files. So in order to add this jar files only, we are going to make use of Maven tool. And what frameworks is going to provide? It's going to provide some common logics required for our project development. Right? What are the common logics? The database connections. So the database connections, to do database connection, we need to load driver class, establish connection, create statement, execute statement, closing operations, handling exceptions. All these things are taken care by your framework. Then we are having the frameworks like Struts framework, it's for web application. Hibernate framework is for database, and Spring framework is for complete application framework. Frameworks are used for developing web applications. What is the framework? Struts framework. Spring is for end-to-end application. It's an application development framework. So complete end-to-end application we can develop using Spring means we can develop web applications. We can even take care of persistence layer by using Spring framework. And once we come to Spring, Spring is developed in the form of modules. So we are having the modules like Spring Core module, Spring Core module, then Spring Context module. We can even select Spring IOC. We are having Spring AOP module, Aspect Oriented Programming, then Spring DAO module, where we go with Spring JDBC, very important one. Then we go with the Spring ORM module, where we discuss Spring Hibernate. Then we are having Spring Data JPA. Then we are having Spring Web MVC. It's for web applications. Then Spring REST, Spring Security. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss this core module and context module in this Spring framework. After that, I'm going to start with this Spring Boot here. I'll go with what? Spring Boot module. And I'm going to cover all these things by using Spring Boot module. That is very, very important. So we can even develop all these things using Spring Core also. Spring also I can develop all these things. But it is going to take a lot of time to develop all these applications using Spring Core. Instead of that, if I develop these applications using Spring Boot, we can develop applications rapidly. Same Spring applications, we can develop rapidly by using Spring Boot. That is the main feature of going with Spring Boot module. So initially, in this Spring, I'm going to discuss about core module and context module. Right? Let us start off with the first one, Spring Core module. Spring Core module is the base module. It is what? It is the base module for Spring Framework. Spring Core module is what? It is the base module for Spring Framework. Then Spring Core module provides fundamental concepts of Spring like the following. So what it's going to provide to us? There are two important ones: IOC, which we call it as inversion of control. Then one more very important one, DI, means dependency injection. So this dependency injection term is very important. So if you understand this dependency injection, then only we can understand Spring Framework. So this term is very important for all the modules. Now, let us understand what is this dependency injection. Dependency injection. Spring is mostly identified with dependency injection. Injecting one object into another. Now, let us understand what is the need of this. Let us go with an example initially. Like let us suppose if you are having a class called as a card. The meaning of card is like a debit card or credit card, like that. A card, a bank related card. So we are having a class card. Then we are having a class bank. In bank, we are creating object of card directly. We are creating object of what? Card directly. So when you create object of card directly, now when you create object of bank, what is going to happen? Let us understand. This is important to understand. When you are creating object of bank, see what is going to happen? It's going to create the bank object. It's going to create the bank object, and under that we have created the card object. So it's going to create card object under bank object. So in this case, we say these two objects are tightly coupled. Coupled means dependent. Coupled means what? Dependent. So these two objects are tightly coupled. So we should not go with the tight coupled applications. We should not go with what? Tight coupled applications. So when you go with tight coupled applications, any changes to card will even affect to the bank also. Okay, right? So that is a problem in this example. So creating objects directly inside the class is not suggested. In the above code, bank object and card object are tightly coupled. Coupled means dependent. So the reason behind that is whatever the card you are taking, it may be credit card or it may be debit card. So what type of card you are adding, that we are unable to mention over here. That's a problem here. It can be a debit card or credit card. So the card may be debit card or credit card. Right? Then, now how to loose coupling? So in order to achieve the loose coupling, we use interfaces. So in order to achieve the loose coupling, what we do, we go with what? Interfaces, like this. So what we do, we create one interface called as card, and after that, we are going to create the classes. We are going to create a class credit card, which implements card. Credit card, which implements card with some code inside. And we can even create a class debit card, which implements card. Now when you are creating class bank, here, when you are creating class bank, so what we do is we just create this card as a property over here. We are just to create this card as a property. This we call it as property. So this we call it as what here? Property. Now, once we create this property, how to give value to this property? We can either go with constructor or setter method like this. So what we do? We create a constructor which takes card as reference and we'll say this dot card equal to card. So when you are writing this code, do we know what type of card it is? We don't know. It may be credit card or debit card. That injection will happen during runtime. So either I may go with credit card or debit card, but this card can handle both the cards. Or in future, if you are getting any other card like Forex card also, that can be managed by using this card here, right? Now, so we can even go with what? Setter method also, like this. Public void set card, which takes card as argument and we'll say this dot card equal to card. Now in the test class, what we do? We create card, debit card equal to new debit card, card is equal to new debit card, card CC, credit card equal to new credit card. We are creating a reference called as which is pointing to debit card object, CC which is pointing to credit card object. Now when you create bank object, if I say bank B1 equal to new bank, to the constructor I'll pass DC. If you create bank B2 equal to new bank, we'll pass this. Now in this case, what is going to happen here? We are having debit card object. We are having bank one object. So what you are doing? You are giving this debit card object to bank one. So you are injecting this debit card object to bank one. Similar way, we are having credit card object and we are having bank object. So we are giving this credit card object to bank 2. We are giving this credit card object to bank 2. This concept only we call dependency injection. This concept only what we call dependency injection. And how we are injecting? Using a constructor or setter method in this example. So either you are going with a constructor or setter method to give the value. In this case, the objects are what here? These objects are now loosely coupled. These objects are what here now? These objects are loosely coupled. So always we should go with loose coupled applications. Always we should go with what? Loose coupled applications. Clear this concept, all of you? Right? Now, if you are using a constructor to give the value to this property, we call it as constructor injection. If you are giving the value to the property using a constructor, we call constructor injection. If you are using setter method, we call it as setter injection. Right? Now, in this case, in the above code, card object, card objects, and bank objects objects and bank objects are loosely coupled. Always we should go with loose couple applications. What is the main need of going with the dependency injection? Dependency injection is used to develop loose coupled applications. Right? Now let us understand what is the need of Spring over here. What is the need of going with Spring? Okay, I can even develop all these applications without using Spring also. Without using Spring also, we can develop this. Then what is the need of going with Spring framework? So for that, we have to understand a concept called as life cycle of an object. Life cycle of an object. So what is this life cycle? Object creation. We have to create object creation, object usage, then object destruction. Object creation, object usage, and object destruction. Right? Then object destruction is taken care by Java because Java is for automatic garbage collection. Object destruction is taken care by Java as Java is automatic garbage collection. Now understand carefully. Let us suppose whenever we are creating objects in Java. So when programmer is taking care of creating the objects, so we are having one drawback. So whenever the objects are created in Java, they are created in a memory called as heap memory, a temporary memory. Objects are created where? In a temporary memory called as heap memory, which is part of RAM. Let us suppose in block of statements. Block means what? Your curly braces will be called block or scope. In this blocker scope, let us suppose we are creating some objects. Call it as blocker scope. So we are creating some objects like object 1, object 2, object 3. Like that, we are creating totally 100 objects in this scope. Now, when these objects are ready for garbage collection, when you come out of scope only, the objects are ready for what? Garbage collection. Now let us object to usage is completed within the scope only. Object to usage is completed within the scope. So even though object to usage is completed, still it is using the memory unnecessarily. So like that, if you are having so many objects which are using the memory unnecessarily, then our performance will get degraded and there is a chance of getting exception. Stack overflow exception. Memory leaks. Right? Then now it is the responsibility of the developer to identify the objects which are no longer required and make that objects ready for what? Garbage collection. What is the point here? Now it is the responsibility of the programmer to identify the objects which are no longer required and make that objects ready for garbage collection. So how to make that object ready for garbage collection? By assigning that object to null, or in our JDBC we call it close method. No, in JDBC after database connection all transactions are over, we do closing operation. So what is the use of closing? To make that objects ready for garbage collection. So programmer responsibility to assign that object ready for garbage collection, then this object will be ready for garbage collection. So this is the hectic job to the developers. This is the main problem. So that is a place Spring will come into picture. Okay, that is a place Spring will come into picture. And what Spring is going to take care here? Who is going to take care of all these things? Spring IOC. Spring IOC. So IOC means inversion of control. Inversion of control. Up to now, we are creating objects. Now Spring is going to take care of creating objects. That's the reason the name has come inversion of control. So what is the role of this? Spring IOC. Spring IOC container manages the creation, configuration, and life cycle of objects. Life cycle of objects in a Spring application. Who is going to take care of creating the objects, configuring objects, maintaining life cycle of objects? IOC container is going to take care of this. That is the need of going with this IOC. Then it uses dependency injection It uses dependency injection to inject dependencies into objects at runtime. Who is going to take care of this dependency injection? Your sorry. Spring IOC container injects dependencies into the beans using constructor injection. Using what? Constructor injection or setter injection. Constructor injection or setter injection. If the life cycle of an object of a class is taken care by IOC, then this class is called as Spring Bean class. So what is this Spring Bean class? If the lifecycle object of that class is taken care by IOC, then such type of classes we call it as what? Spring Bean classes. Okay. Right. So IOC container manages the lifecycle of beans, including creating, configuring, and disposing the objects. So what is the use of this? IOC container manages the life cycle of beans. So now beans means what? Your spring beans only. Beans including creating, configuring, and disposing the objects here. Right? Clear all of you? Any questions? Anyone having any questions up to here? No. Let us start developing an application using Spring now. Let's develop an application. Developing a Spring Core application in Eclipse using Maven. I'm going to make use of Eclipse and Eclipse IDE, and we are going to create the project using Maven. Okay. The first step, we have to create a Maven project. Create a Maven project. So to create Maven project, let me open Eclipse. Now create a Maven project here. File, new, Maven project. Make a check mark here. Create a simple project. Skip archetype selection. So click next. Here go with the group ID. I'll say com.rajtech. Then artifact ID. Let me say it as Spring Core project. I'm going with what name? Spring Core project. Then packaging jar. Now click on finish button. That's it. The project will get created. Let me document this for the first time. How to create this? Click on File, New, Maven project. Make check mark to create a simple project. Skip archetype selection. Click next. Then it will ask you the group ID, the company name. I'm saying com.rajtech. You will wish all this. Artifact ID means the project name. So what is that? Spring core project. Click finish. That's it. The project will get created. Now, once the project got created, what is our next step? We need to add the project dependencies. What is our next step? We need to add the project dependencies. So dependencies we need to add. So Spring context dependency. So you can search here Spring context Maven dependency. Open this MVN repository. We have seen now in Maven 2. Then I can make use of this 6 version. Copy this. Just click in the box. The code will get copied. So the code will get copied and come back to this Spring Core project pym.xml file. And what we need to do? We have to create element, dependencies element. In between dependencies element, whatever the code we copied, we have to paste over here and save it. Then automatically it's going to add the dependencies here. Spring Core, Spring Bean, all these dependencies got added here. Okay, clear up here the setup required. Right. So what is our next step? Add the following dependency in pym.xml file. Right. We can refer the program pym.xml. Our next step. Once we add this dependency, our next step, let us create a Spring Bean class. So what is the meaning of Spring Bean class? If the lifecycle of object of that class is taken care by Spring, then we call it as Spring Bean class. Create a package. Create a package com.spring.core in src main Java folder of Spring Core project. Create a Spring Bean class. Let me take it as book in com.spring.core package. Create one more Spring Bean class. Create a Spring Bean class library in com.spring.core package. Library.java. Now let us do this step. Under src main Java, create one package com.spring.core. Under this package, let us create a new class book. Go with the properties. Provide int book ID. Provide string book name. Let us go with the constructor public book, which takes book ID, then book name as arguments. Then we'll say this dot book ID equal to book ID. This dot book name equal to book name. We are using constructor to give the value to the properties. Then we call it as constructor injection. We call it as what? Constructor injection. Then when a class contains parameters or constructor, it's always suggested to create a default constructor. Right? Now this class is ready now. Okay. Now create the next one, a library. Right click on package and say new class, a library. Let us go with the property book. Generate setter and getter. Right click and say source, generate getters and setters. Select all, generate. So set book to give the value to property, get book to return the value of property. So what we are using here, setter injection. Now once we create this bean classes, now we have to create objects of this classes. So who is going to take care of creating object? Here we write Spring Bean XML configuration file. So our next and very, very important step, create Spring Bean XML configuration file. Let me go with the name library.xml in in src main resources folder of Spring Core project. This is the major important code for us. Library.xml. So when to create under src main resources, right click src main resources, new other XML file. Go with the name library.xml. Come to source tab. Here we have to follow a template. So let me take the template here, Spring Bean XML file template. Okay. So let me open this file, copy this piece of code and paste here. I'll be sharing this file also. The root tag of Spring Bean XML configuration file is beans. Here we go with the bean id equal to lab. It's an object of class com.spring.core.library. An object of which class here? Library class. Now in this library, we are having how many properties? One property book. So this we call it as property. And how we are giving value to property? Set injection. So we have to use the element property name book, and we'll say reference book. We are referring to book. Now what you do? You create a bean id equal to book. So this reference should match. This reference, this id should match. So this book property, it's an object of which class? com.spring.book class. It's an object of which class? This property book, it's an object of book class. So this is the meaning called as injecting this object into a library. This only we call dependency injection. Now in this book class, how many properties we are having? Two properties. And how we are giving value to property? Constructor injection. So we have to use the element here, constructor arg. Constructor arg value equal to 111. Constructor arg value equal to len spring. That's it. So now in the test class, when you refer to this id lab, it creates object of library. Who's going to take care of creating objects here? IOC. Spring IOC container is taking care of creating the objects here. So it means the lifecycle of objects is taken care by Spring now. Then which contains a property book. So this book will get injected to library. So this concept only we call dependency injection. Clear this point, all of you? Any questions? Right. Then in library, we'll have only one book or multiple books? Multiple. How to manage multiple? Using list. List book books. Now generate setters and getter methods for list of books. We are using same setter injection. How to manage this list of books now? How to manage here? Let us suppose we are creating multiple books here. We are creating book 1, book 2 and book 3. And let us change the values 222. Let hibernate 333. Let Angular. Right? Now we are having the property name books. Property name is what here? Books. Since this property is a list, we have to use the element here list. To this list, we need to add these 3 books. How to add is, we have to say here reference bean equal to book 1. Then book 1 will get added to list. Similar way, reference being equal to book 2, then reference being equal to book 3. That's it. So we are adding these 3 books to your books property. So this completes our Spring Bean XML configuration file. Clear? Any questions, anyone? Now let us test this application. Create a test class, library test in com.spring.core package. This we need to run. So with the final step, right click on package and say new class library test with main method. Here what we need to do, we need to load our Spring Bean XML configuration file. So who is going to take care here? Application context. So this is only our IOC container. Application context equal to new class path XML application context. What is the name of the XML file? Library.xml. So then this code is going to load our library.xml. So this is only which module is taking care here? Spring IOC module. These are all related to IOC module. Then say library lib equal to context.getBean lib. So when you say context.getBean lib, since the bin id lib, it creates object of library class with a property books, and these 3 books will get injected to this books property. Then books property is ready with values. And since context.getBean returns object, go with typecasting. Now see here, list books equal to lib.getBooks. We are calling getter method. Now traverse these books. How to traverse? For book b::books, then print the object b here. That's it. Now see, when we run this code, property. Okay. So spelling mistake here. Here com.spring.core.book. The package name we have not given properly. So this is the package where it belongs. Run this code. Here we are getting the books, but it's showing the class name along with hash code. So when you are printing objects in SOP, it's going to invoke toString method. So you can override toString method in the book class, where we return book ID space book name. Right? Run this, we get the list of books here. Got it, everyone? The application is working. Any questions, anyone? So I'll be adding this project, complete project, into our GitHub repository. I'm just closing this. So the project folder, I'm going to add it here. So this complete project folder, what we have worked now, this complete project folder along with XML file, let us publish into our GitHub repository. Let us open GitHub. Let us create one new repository. Let me go here with the name Spring Core Project. Okay, I'm going with the name Spring Core Project, or let me say Spring Framework, so that I can add all the Spring related projects into this repository. I'm going with the repository name Spring Framework. Okay, then create repository. Now what we need to do, just we have to establish the connection. So copy all this. This is the folder which I want to publish. Framework folder I want to publish. So what we should do, right click and say show more options, open git bash. Then now paste our comments. Press enter key. Right. Okay. Now check the status, git status. Readme file, we got it. Whatever. Let me close it and reopen again. Git status. So this still are pending. So they are not added to staging area. Spring Core project and Spring Bean XML file template. So how to add this into the staging area? What command we have to use? Git add. You can even simply use dot here. Dot means it's going to take all the files present in our folder. Then what is our next command? We have to push it into the local repository. What command we have to use? Git commit -m. Then go with the message. Go with the message. Something like Spring Core project I'm saying. Then our next step, git push. Git push. That's it. Okay. Now you can find our project in our repository. See here you can see Spring Core project, right? This is the URL you can use. Right? So if you open this URL from your browser, then project will be shown to you. Spring Framework will be shown where you can see Spring Core project, and you can see src main, our package, our files. Okay. Then src main resources contains our XML file. Okay. And even the Spring project contains our Spring Bean XML file template. So everything you can open from this URL. Okay. So this URL you can use are downloading your source code. So every day, whatever the updates we do our project, everything I'll be uploading to this GitHub here. Okay. Even I'm sharing through chat of GoToMeeting. From there also you can copy this. You can copy this GitHub URL from the chat window of GoToMeeting. Clear everyone? Any questions? So that's about for today. And tomorrow we'll see how to go with annotation based. We have seen today XML based configuration. We have created XML file. Tomorrow we'll see how to go with annotation based configuration also. Okay, right. Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you very much. And I'll be uploading. I have already shared the drive link to you. So in that drive link, I'll be uploading this class notes and even the recording of this class also. I'll be uploading in the drive link. It's a regular practice. Okay, it's a regular practice to us. Okay? Thank you all.